Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Beneath the pulsating lights, the music reverberated through the walls of the packed concert hall, its beat a heartbeat to the dancing crowd. In this frenzy of energy, Antonio and Rachel shared an intimate space, his embrace around her a silent shield against the throng. With his lips grazing her ear, Antonio asked above the pulsating noise, "Are you thirsty for more?" Rachel beamed at him, smiling. "Absolutely not." Her fingers intertwined with his. "The thrill of this band is even more captivating live." The thumping bass echoed his heart's rhythm as Antonio agreed, feeling deeply content. This night, like the past 3 months of their relationship, was perfectly in sync. Her dark brown hair cascaded down the back of her emerald green blouse, catching the light with each movement. He admired how comfortable she seemed in her own skin, something he had always struggled with. The opening act finished their set, and the crowd's roar of approval cascaded through the venue. As people shifted to refresh their drinks before the main event, Antonio guided Rachel toward a less crowded corner. "I'm going to find the restroom before the headliner starts," Rachel said, standing on tiptoe to kiss his cheek. "Don't move. I'll find you right here." As Rachel disappeared into the crowd, Antonio leaned against the wall, taking a moment to collect himself. The venue was growing warmer by the minute, and he loosened the top button of his navy blue shirt, feeling sweat beginning to prickle at his hairline. "Well, well, fancy seeing you here." The voice cut through the ambient noise with razor precision. Antonio felt his muscles tense before he even turned to face its owner. Jessica stood before him, her signature red lipstick as bold as the smirk playing across her features. Their breakup 6 months ago had been messy. Her accusations, his denials, the walls of trust crumbling beyond repair. "Jessica." He kept his voice neutral, determined not to give her the satisfaction of seeing his discomfort. "Didn't know you were into this band. There's a lot you assume people don't know about each other, isn't there?" Her eyes narrowed slightly, a predatory gleam reflecting in them. "Your new girlfriend seems nice. Rachel, right? I saw you two earlier." Antonio shifted his weight, suddenly aware of how exposed he felt. "Look, Jessica, whatever you're thinking of doing—" "Relax," she interrupted, raising her hands in mock surrender. "I'm just making conversation, though I wonder—" She tilted her head, examining him. "Does she know you better than I did? Or are you still keeping secrets?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Antonio felt his heart begin to race, a cold sweat breaking out across his back that had nothing to do with the venue's temperature. "We're done, Jessica. Have been for months. Whatever game you're playing, I'm not interested." He searched the crowd for Rachel, hoping she would return and end this uncomfortable reunion. Jessica stepped closer, the scent of her perfume, once familiar, now cloying, invading his space. "It's not a game, Antonio. Just curiosity. Does she know about the collection in the back of your closet? The silky little numbers you think nobody knows about?" The words struck him like physical blows. His secret, the one he'd guarded so carefully, the one that had contributed to their relationship's demise when Jessica had discovered a receipt he couldn't explain away, hung exposed between them. Before he could respond, Rachel materialized at his side, her smile bright until she registered the tension in his posture. "Hi there," she said, glancing questioningly between Antonio and the stranger. Jessica's smile widened, all teeth and no warmth. "Rachel, right? I'm Jessica, Antonio's ex. We were just catching up." She extended her hand, which Rachel took with visible hesitation. "Nice to meet you," Rachel replied, her tone polite but guarded as she moved closer to Antonio. Jessica leaned in toward Rachel, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that Antonio could still hear. "Just a friendly warning. Check the back of his closet sometime, behind the winter coats. You might find his collection of women's clothing interesting. The pencil skirts are his favorite, though he does love a good pair of heels." Antonio froze, his worst fear realized as Jessica stepped back, satisfaction plain on her face. She blew a mocking kiss in their direction before melting into the crowd, leaving behind the wreckage of her words. The silence between them stretched painfully as the venue lights dimmed, signaling the main act was about to begin. The roar of the crowd seemed distant now, irrelevant compared to the hammering of his heart. "Rachel, I can explain," Antonio began, but she squeezed his hand, cutting him off. "Not here," she said, her expression unreadable in the darkened venue. "Let's just enjoy the show, okay?
We'll talk after."
The concert continued, but Antonio barely registered the music. Each song blurred into the next as he stood rigid beside Rachel, his mind racing through explanations, denials, and the very real possibility that this relationship, the most genuine connection he'd ever felt, was about to crumble just like the last. The drive home passed in excruciating silence. Rachel kept her eyes on the road, occasionally humming along to the radio, an attempt at normalcy that only heightened Antonio's anxiety. His knuckles were white against the fabric of his jeans, mind racing through possible scenarios for the conversation to come. When they finally reached his apartment, Rachel followed him inside without hesitation. She slipped off her jacket, revealing the full emerald green blouse that complemented her olive skin so perfectly. She looked beautiful, he thought desperately, possibly for the last time in his life.
"Would you like some tea?"
he offered, stalling for time. Rachel nodded, settling onto the couch. "That would be nice." In the kitchen, Antonio moved through the familiar motions of filling the kettle and selecting tea bags, his hands trembling slightly. When he returned with 2 steaming mugs, Rachel had kicked off her shoes and curled her legs beneath her, a pose so comfortable, so at home in his space, that it made his chest ache with the thought of losing her. "So," Rachel began after taking a cautious sip, "about what Jessica said." Antonio set his mug down, untouched, the ceramic making a sharp sound against the coffee table.
"She was just trying to cause trouble. She's always been vindictive, especially since the breakup."
Rachel studied him, her dark eyes missing nothing. "Antonio, is what she said true? Do you have women's clothing hidden in your closet?" The direct question left no room for evasion. Antonio felt the weight of years of hiding, of shame and secret longings pressed down on him. His throat tightened.
"Yes,"
he admitted finally, the word barely audible.
"It's true."
Instead of disgust or anger, Rachel's expression softened. She set her tea aside and reached for his hand. "Will you show me?" Of all the responses he had imagined, this wasn't one of them. Antonio stared at her, searching for any sign of mockery or revulsion, and finding none.
"You want to see?"
"If you're comfortable sharing that part of yourself with me, yes." Wordlessly, Antonio rose from the couch, his legs unsteady beneath him. Rachel followed as he led her to the bedroom, a space she had been in countless times before. He approached the closet at the far end of the room, sliding open the door to reveal a row of hanging clothes. Suits, shirts, casual wear, all neatly arranged. At the back, partially hidden behind winter jackets, was a locked trunk. Antonio retrieved a small key from his bedside drawer, feeling Rachel's gaze on him as he knelt before the trunk and unlocked it. When he lifted the lid, he revealed neatly folded garments, pencil skirts in various dark colors, silky blouses, a small collection of dresses. Beside them lay a modest selection of women's shoes, patent leather pumps, a pair of ankle boots, ballet flats. This is me. A part of me I've never known how to share. His voice caught on the words. Jessica found a receipt once. I denied everything. It became another reason for her to distrust me, and eventually, she left. Rachel knelt beside him, gently lifting a charcoal gray pencil skirt from the trunk.
How long? Since college,
Antonio admitted.
At first I told myself it was just curiosity. Then it became something more. A way to feel complete, to express something I couldn't put into words.
Rachel ran her fingers over the fabric of the skirt, then looked up at him.
Do you have a name when you wear these?
The question caught him off guard.
Hallie,
he whispered, revealing a secret he had never spoken aloud to another soul.
When I'm her, I'm Hallie.
Rachel smiled then, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. That's a beautiful name. She placed the skirt back in the trunk and took his hands in hers. Thank you for trusting me with this, Antonio, for letting me meet Hallie. Relief washed over him, so powerful he felt momentarily dizzy with it. You're not disgusted? You don't want to leave? Why would I? Rachel's voice was gentle but firm. This doesn't change who you are. It just shows me more of you. And I want to know all of you, Antonio, including Hallie. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. He swallowed hard. I've never shown anyone this side of me. Not willingly. Rachel squeezed his hands. Would you show me now? I'd like to meet Hallie properly, if you're ready. The request hung in the air between them, fragile and monumental. Antonio, soon to be Hallie, looked at Rachel and saw nothing but acceptance in her eyes. Slowly, he nodded. I'd like that, Hallie whispered. Rachel helped select an outfit from the trunk, a black pencil skirt, a deep purple silk blouse, and a pair of modest black pumps. She excused herself to the living room while Antonio changed, giving him the privacy he needed for this vulnerable transformation. In the bedroom, Antonio removed his navy blue shirt and jeans, carefully folding them on the bed. He slipped on the silky blouse first, feeling the familiar sensation of the fabric against his skin. The pencil skirt followed, hugging his hips and falling just below his knees. Finally, he stepped into the pumps, adjusting his posture to accommodate the slight heel. Standing before the mirror, he saw a halfway point, Antonio in Hallie's clothes, but not yet fully her. He reached beneath the trunk and pulled out a small makeup bag he had never shown anyone. Inside was a modest collection: foundation, mascara, a neutral eyeshadow palette, and a few lipsticks. His hands trembled as he applied the foundation. Struggling with the technique, he had only practiced in secret, late at night, when the world was asleep. After several minutes of fumbling with the eyeshadow, a gentle knock came at the door. "Need any help in there?" Rachel called softly. He hesitated, then replied,
"Actually, yes. I'm not very good at this part."
Rachel entered, her eyes widening slightly as she took in his transformation. "You look lovely," she said sincerely, approaching the vanity where he sat. "May I?" When he nodded, she took the makeup brush from his hand and stood before him. "Close your eyes," she instructed gently. As he did, he felt the soft sweep of the brush across his eyelids, Rachel's touch confident and skilled. "I used to help my sister with her makeup before big dates," Rachel explained as she worked. "She was always hopeless with eyeliner." For the next 20 minutes, Rachel guided his transformation, applying eyeshadow, mascara, a touch of blush, and finally, a dusty rose lipstick that complemented his natural coloring. When she finished, she stepped back. "Open your eyes, Hallie." In the mirror, a different person gazed back. Gone was Antonio, with his hesitant posture and anxious eyes. In his place sat Hallie. Her features softened by makeup, her auburn hair, which Antonio had been growing out. For a change, he'd claimed, now framing her face in a way that looked intentional rather than simply overdue for a cut. "What do you think?" Rachel asked, her voice gentle. Hallie stared at her reflection, unable to speak for a moment. I think this is the first time I've truly seen myself," she finally whispered. Rachel squeezed her shoulder. "You're beautiful, Hallie." And for the first time, Hallie believed it might be true. They spent the evening in the apartment, Hallie gradually growing more comfortable in her own skin. Rachel treated her no differently than she had treated Antonio. They ordered takeout, watched a movie, talked about the concert. But beneath the normalcy ran a current of profound change. Hallie no longer had to hide. As the night grew late, Rachel yawned and checked her watch. "I should probably head home. Early meeting tomorrow." Hallie felt a moment of panic. "Should I change first, before you go?" Rachel tilted her head, studying her. "Do you want to change back? Or would you rather stay as Hallie a little longer?" The question gave Hallie pause. She had never had the luxury of considering what she wanted, only what was expected, what was safe. "I'd like to stay like this," she admitted, "at least until I go to bed." "Then stay as Hallie," Rachel said simply. She leaned in and kissed Hallie's cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "I'm so glad I met you tonight. Both parts of you." After Rachel left, Hallie moved through the apartment with a newfound lightness. She poured herself a small glass of wine and stood by the window, looking out at the city below. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel the need to rush back to being Antonio, to tuck Hallie away in a locked trunk. Tonight, she could simply exist. When sleep finally called, Hallie carefully removed her makeup, changed into a soft nightgown she had never dared wear for a full night's sleep before, and slipped between the sheets. As consciousness faded, one thought remained. Rachel had seen her, truly seen her, and hadn't turned away. The next morning arrived with the tentative light of dawn filtering through half-drawn curtains. Hallie blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the silky feel of the nightgown against her skin. The events of the previous night rushed back, and with them came a wave of uncertainty. What now? How would Rachel truly feel in the cold light of day? Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Rachel. Good morning. Been thinking about our evening. Would you be up for dinner again tonight? I have something for you. Relief and curiosity mingled as Hallie typed her reply. I'd love that. My place at 7? The response came immediately. Perfect. Wear something comfortable. Can't wait to see you. Both of you. Both of you. The phrase sent a warm feeling cascading through Hallie's chest. She rose from bed and approached her closet, staring at the mix of Antonio's clothes hanging neatly alongside the hidden trunk of Hallie's outfits. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a world where those barriers didn't exist, where Hallie's clothes hung openly beside Antonio's, or perhaps where they were all simply Hallie's. She dressed in Antonio's clothes for work, a necessity she wasn't yet ready to challenge, but beneath the khakis and button-down shirt, she felt Hallie's presence more keenly than ever before. The workday dragged endlessly, each minute ticking by with excruciating slowness as Hallie anticipated the evening ahead. When she finally returned to her apartment, she showered quickly and stood dripping before the open closet, decision hovering in the air. Tonight, she would not retreat. Tonight, she would greet Rachel as her true self. She selected a simple black A-line dress from the trunk, comfortable yet feminine, with 3/4 sleeves and a modest neckline. She dried her auburn hair, letting it fall softly around her face, longer on top where Antonio had been growing it out, shorter at the nape. It wasn't yet the length she dreamed of, but it was a start. With steadier hands than the night before, she applied her makeup, using the techniques Rachel had shown her. The foundation went on smoothly, followed by a touch of blush, neutral eyeshadow, and mascara. For her lips, she chose a soft mauve that felt appropriate for a quiet dinner at home. The doorbell rang just as she was slipping on a pair of black ballet flats. Taking a deep breath, Hallie moved to answer it, her heart pounding against her ribs. Rachel stood in the hallway, a vision in a cobalt blue dress, holding a large shopping bag in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. Her smile, when she saw Hallie, was radiant. "You look wonderful," she said, stepping inside and setting her bags down to embrace Hallie properly. "That dress suits you perfectly." "Thank you," Hallie replied, her voice soft but growing in confidence. "You look beautiful too." They moved to the kitchen, where Hallie had prepared a simple pasta dish earlier. As Rachel poured the wine, she gestured to the shopping bag she'd brought. "I got you something, or rather, for Hallie." Curious, Hallie peered into the bag. Inside was a tissue-wrapped package, tied with a simple ribbon. She glanced at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. "Open it." Carefully, Hallie untied the ribbon and parted the tissue paper. Inside lay a crimson wrap dress, the fabric rich and flowing. She lifted it from the bag, feeling the quality of the material between her fingers. "Rachel, this is gorgeous," she breathed. "I thought it would complement your coloring," Rachel explained. "The auburn of your hair against the crimson. It'll be stunning, and wrap dresses are universally flattering." She hesitated, then added, "I thought maybe you could wear it on our next proper date night, if you wanted to go out as Hallie, that is." The suggestion hung in the air, breathtaking in its implications. Going out, in public, as Hallie. Not hiding in the apartment, but dining in a restaurant, walking down a street, existing in the world as her true self. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," Hallie admitted, though her fingers continued to caress the beautiful dress. Rachel nodded, understanding in her eyes. "There's no rush. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, this will be waiting for you, just like I will." They ate dinner at the small kitchen table, the conversation flowing naturally despite the profound shift in their relationship. Rachel spoke about her day, about future concerts they might attend, about a book she was reading, all while looking at Hallie with the same affection she had shown Antonio. "Can I ask you something?" Rachel said as they cleared the dishes together. "And feel free not to answer if it's too personal." Hallie nodded, setting a plate in the drying rack.
Of course. Is this, being Holly, something you want sometimes? Or is it who you feel you truly are all the time?
The question struck at the heart of something Hallie had been circling for years, never quite allowing herself to fully examine. She dried her hands on a kitchen towel, buying time to formulate a response. "I think," she began slowly, "I think I've spent so long compartmentalizing these feelings that I'm not sure anymore. Antonio was who I thought I needed to be for the world. Hallie was my secret, my escape." She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had typed reports as Antonio just hours earlier. "But being Holly doesn't feel like putting something on. It feels like taking something off. Like I can breathe fully for the first time." Rachel listened intently, her expression open and free of judgment. "And how does it feel right now? Being Hallie with me?" "It feels right," Hallie said simply. "Like I've been holding my breath for years and finally, I can exhale." Rachel reached out, taking Hallie's hand in hers. "Then keep breathing. Figure it out at your own pace. I'm not going anywhere." In the days that followed, a new rhythm developed between them. At work, she maintained her appearance as Antonio, the same clothes, the same carefully neutral mannerisms. But in the privacy of her apartment, especially when with Rachel, she allowed Hallie to emerge more fully. Each evening, she would change out of Antonio's restrictive work clothes and into Hallie's more comfortable attire. Rachel helped her expand her wardrobe, bringing small gifts, a scarf one day, a simple bracelet the next, that allowed Hallie to express herself more completely. 2 weeks after the concert, Rachel arrived at Hallie's apartment with a determined look in her eye and a small bag from a beauty supply store. "I thought we might try something with your hair," she explained, setting the bag on the bathroom counter. Inside were several styling products, a round brush, and a small flat iron. "Your natural length is getting there, but I think with the right styling, we can make it frame your face more femininely." For the next hour, Rachel worked with gentle hands, showing Hallie how to style her auburn hair to soften her features. The result wasn't dramatic. Antonio's growing out phase had already given her several inches to work with, but the subtle changes made a remarkable difference. With the sides swept forward and the top layered to create more volume, Hallie's reflection in the mirror looked undeniably feminine. "It's amazing what a difference the right styling makes," Rachel commented, standing behind Hallie as they both assessed the transformation in the mirror. "And as it continues growing out, we'll have even more options." Hallie touched her hair wonderingly. "I've always wanted it longer," she admitted. Antonio had a dozen excuses for why he was growing it out, but really, it was always for Hallie. Rachel smiled, meeting Hallie's eyes in the mirror. "And how is Hallie feeling about the crimson dress hanging in her closet? Any thoughts about wearing it out sometime?" The dress had remained unworn, though Hallie had tried it on in private, marveling at how perfectly it fit, how the rich color seemed to make her skin glow. The thought of wearing it outside the safety of her apartment still brought a flutter of anxiety to her stomach. "I'm getting there," she said honestly. "Maybe we could start with something small, a quiet dinner somewhere not too crowded." Rachel's face lit up. "I know just the place. There's a little Italian restaurant in the next town over. Intimate, dimly lit, very romantic. How about this Saturday?" Hallie felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration at the prospect. "Saturday," she agreed, the word both a promise and a challenge. When Saturday arrived, Hallie spent the day in a state of nervous anticipation. She cleaned her apartment obsessively, rearranged her closet 3 times, and changed the sheets on her bed, though they were already fresh. Anything to keep her hands busy and her mind from dwelling on the evening ahead. Rachel arrived early to help her prepare, bringing along her extensive makeup collection and a reassuring smile. "We've got plenty of time," she assured Hallie, unpacking her supplies on the bathroom counter. "And if at any point you change your mind about going out, we'll stay in. No pressure." But despite her nerves, Hallie didn't want to back out. This step, this first venture into the world as her true self, felt necessary, like breaking through an invisible barrier that had contained her for too long. The transformation began with a long, relaxing shower, followed by careful attention to every detail. Rachel helped with her makeup, creating a slightly more sophisticated look than Hallie had attempted on her own. Subtle, smoky eyes that enhanced her natural color, a hint of contour to soften her jawline, and a deeper red lip that would complement the crimson dress. Her hair, already styled in the feminine cut Rachel had shown her, received additional attention. Rachel worked a small amount of product through it, enhancing the natural wave and adding volume at the crown. Finally, it was time for the dress. Hallie slipped it on, feeling the soft fabric embrace her body. The wrap style created the illusion of curves where Antonio's frame was straight, and the crimson color was indeed stunning against her auburn hair and fair skin. Rachel fastened a delicate silver necklace around Hallie's neck, another small gift she had brought, and stepped back to admire the complete picture. "You're a vision," she said softly, genuine admiration in her eyes.
Truly beautiful.
Hallie turned to the full-length mirror on her closet door, and for a moment, she hardly recognized herself. Gone was any trace of Antonio. In his place stood a woman, confident and elegant, in a crimson dress, her auburn hair framing a face that finally felt like her own. "I never thought," she began, her voice catching. "I never thought I could look like this, feel like this." Rachel came to stand beside her, their reflections side by side in the mirror. 2 women, different in style and build, but equally feminine in their presentation. "This is who you've always been," Rachel said. "The world just gets to see her now, too." The drive to the restaurant was nerve-wracking, each mile bringing Hallie closer to her public debut. She sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, occasionally touching her hair or adjusting her necklace in nervous gestures. "Remember," Rachel said as they approached their destination, "we're just 2 women having dinner. Nothing more complicated than that." The restaurant was exactly as Rachel had described, intimate and dimly lit, with small tables spaced far enough apart to provide privacy. The hostess greeted them with a warm smile, showing no sign that she viewed Hallie as anything other than the woman she presented herself to be. "Table for 2? Right this way, ladies." That simple word, ladies, sent a thrill through Hallie. She had been included, automatically and without question, in the category where she had always belonged. Their table was in a quiet corner, illuminated by a small candle and a softly glowing wall sconce. As they settled in, Rachel reached across to squeeze Hallie's hand. "You're doing amazingly," she whispered. "How are you feeling?" Hallie glanced around the restaurant, taking in the other diners. Couples leaning close in conversation, friends sharing bottles of wine, a family celebrating in a larger booth. No one was looking at her. No one was whispering or pointing. She was simply another woman having dinner with her girlfriend. "I feel normal," she realized aloud, a smile spreading across her face. "For the first time, I feel normal." The evening unfolded with unexpected ease. They ordered wine and pasta, talking and laughing as they had in the privacy of Hallie's apartment, but now in full view of the world. With each passing minute, Hallie's confidence grew. She stopped checking to see if people were staring. She stopped worrying about her voice, her posture, her gestures. She simply existed as herself. When they finally left the restaurant, stepping out into the cool night air, Hallie felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had crossed a threshold she had once believed impossible. "Thank you," she said to Rachel as they walked hand in hand to the car. "For making this possible. For seeing me when I couldn't even see myself clearly." Rachel stopped walking, turning to face her beneath the soft glow of a street lamp. "You did the hard part, Hallie. You had the courage to be yourself, to let me see the real you. I'm just grateful I get to be part of your journey." She leaned in and kissed Hallie gently, a public affirmation of acceptance that brought tears to Hallie's eyes. "Ready to go home?" Rachel asked when they parted. Home. The word carried new meaning now. Home was no longer a place where Hallie had to hide in a locked trunk. Home could be a place where she lived freely, authentically, in the light. "Yes," Hallie said, squeezing Rachel's hand. "Let's go home." In the months that followed that first dinner, Hallie's transformation continued. Not just externally, but internally as well. Antonio's clothes gradually migrated to the back of the closet, then to donation bags, as Hallie built a wardrobe that reflected who she truly was. Her auburn hair grew longer, brushing her shoulders and softening her features further. With Rachel's encouragement, she began researching gender identity, connecting with online communities, and eventually consulting a therapist who specialized in transgender issues. The word transgender had once seemed foreign, a label that belonged to other people's stories. But as Hallie embraced her true self more fully, she recognized the truth that had always been there, waiting for her to acknowledge it. 6 months after the night Jessica had attempted to sabotage their relationship, Hallie stood in her apartment, now their apartment, as Rachel had moved in 2 months earlier, preparing for a dinner neither of them had anticipated. "Are you sure about this?" Rachel asked, helping Hallie fasten the back of her dress, a deep forest green that complemented her auburn hair just as beautifully as the crimson had. "We can cancel if you're not ready." Hallie shook her head, determination overriding her anxiety. "No, I want to do this. It's time." The invitation had arrived unexpectedly the week before, a text message from Jessica asking if they could meet. According to her message, she wanted to apologize for her behavior at the concert. Hallie had been surprised, skeptical, but ultimately curious enough to agree to dinner at a neutral restaurant. "You've come so far," Rachel said, pride evident in her voice as she gazed at Hallie. "Whatever happens tonight, remember that." Indeed, The woman who stood before the mirror now bore little resemblance to the Antonio who had hidden in fear 6 months earlier. Hallie's confidence had grown alongside her hair, her style, her comfort in her own skin. She had begun hormone therapy 2 months prior, subtle changes already softening her features and redistribution of body fat, changes that complemented her daily practice and increased femininity. She had come out to close friends and selected coworkers, finding support where she had once feared rejection. The restaurant Jessica had suggested was upscale, the kind of place that required reservations weeks in advance. When Hallie and Rachel arrived, they found Jessica already seated at a table near the window, nursing a glass of white wine. Jessica looked up as they approached, her expression freezing momentarily as she took in Hallie's appearance. Recognition dawned in her eyes. Confusion, then understanding, then something unreadable. "Antonio?" she said, the name falling awkwardly in the space between them. "Hallie," she corrected gently, taking the seat across from her former girlfriend. "It's Hallie now." Jessica blinked, glancing between Hallie and Rachel. I'm sorry. I didn't know." "That was kind of the point that night at the concert," Rachel said, her tone firm but not unkind. "You exposed a secret that wasn't yours to share." Jessica had the grace to look ashamed, her gaze dropping to her wineglass. "That's why I wanted to meet, to apologize. I was hurt and angry, and I wanted to hurt you back." She looked up at Hallie. "I never imagined this." "Neither did I," Hallie admitted, finding unexpected calm in the face of this confrontation.
But what you did, as hurtful as your intention was, forced me to be honest with Rachel and with myself. In a strange way, I should thank you. Jessica's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Thank me? For trying to humiliate you?" "For accidentally setting me free," Hallie clarified. "It wasn't your intention, but here we are." A moment of silence stretched between them, filled with the ambient sounds of the restaurant, conversations at nearby tables, the clink of glassware, soft background music. Finally, Jessica spoke again. "You look happy," she observed, something like wonder in her voice. "Happier than I ever saw you when we were together." "I am happy," Hallie confirmed, reaching for Rachel's hand on the table. "For the first time, I'm living as my authentic self, with someone who loves all of me." Jessica nodded slowly, a complex mixture of emotions crossing her features. "I'm glad," she said finally, and to Hallie's surprise, she seemed sincere. "And I truly am sorry for what I did. It was cruel and petty." "It was," Hallie agreed. "But it's in the past now." They ordered dinner, the conversation gradually shifting to neutral topics. Jessica's new job, Rachel's latest photography project, the changing neighborhood around them. By the time dessert arrived, the initial tension had dissipated, replaced by a cautious civility that felt like closure. As they prepared to leave, Jessica touched Hallie's arm lightly. "Can I ask you something? You don't have to answer." Hallie nodded, curious. Was Hallie always there, even when we were together?" The question was asked without malice, simple curiosity evident in Jessica's expression. Hallie considered her answer carefully. "Yes," she said finally. "But I wasn't ready to acknowledge her, even to myself." Jessica and Hallie left the restaurant arm in arm, a sense of freedom enveloping them both.
The evening had been a turning point, a releasing of long-held fears. They were ready to let go of the past and embrace a future together, a future where Hallie could be truly herself and Jessica could love her for it. The warm summer night seemed to embrace them as they walked, a gentle breeze carrying the smell of nearby gardens. They strolled in comfortable silence, each lost in their thoughts, yet feeling closer than ever. "I want to show you something," Hallie said after a while, guiding Jessica towards a secluded park they were passing. The place was almost empty, save for a couple of distant figures sitting on a bench and a few stray cats prowling in the shadows. They wandered along a path lined with trees, the soft glow of street lamps casting dappled light and shadow. When they reached the middle of the park, Hallie stopped and turned to Jessica, her eyes shining in the dim light. "I want to show you everything," Hallie began, her voice filled with emotion.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!